So we're very good at using the internet these days. But there are some unintended consequences, and that's what I'll be talking about today. So first of all, I'll talk about life, both real life and our online lives, death, similarly on and offline, and the kind of assets we have. I'll then go on to talk about bequeathing digital assets in particular, and some steps that you can take to address some of the problems that exist. So it used to be that we were expected to live till 70 years and 10, and we created photos, love letters, things we kept in shoe boxes, things we kept on the shelf, things that people could inherit when we died. Nowadays, of course, we put a lot of things online. It's not just young people, like everyone in the audience. Older people too. So, and this is a graph for the US, but in the US, internet use is reaching saturation for teens. But even older people, adults aged 65 and over, have been ramping up in the last 10 years, from under 25% to heading towards 50%. So people are going online increasingly, and they're storing digital assets online. It's not showing up there. But when we die, do we die offline? Yes. Do we die online? Maybe not. In fact, we can linger on online indefinitely. Well, at least until our internet service provider goes broke or gets sued or whatever happens to them. In the real world, of course, we have all these assets that we can bequeath. You know, we've got, if we're lucky, houses, jewellery, car, furniture. We may also have a body we want to leave to medical science. We can leave that too. So there is law in place to support us bequeathing our real-life assets. Online, we have loads of stuff, most of us these days. You know, we put our photos up on Flickr, our first child, wedding, big parties, family memories. If I put my stuff on Flickr and I'm hit by a bus on the way home, and I'm the one that looks after the photos in my family, tough luck, family, you can't have those photos. A lot of the terms of service that are in place are either vague or they mean that you lose your assets on death. The account terminates on death. It's even more sketchy, things like air miles accounts that have some value, videos, music, books. It's a bit of a mess at the moment. It's this thing of unintended consequences. Our digital assets are spread around, so some may be on a memory stick. This presentation's on a memory stick, so that's nice and easy. If I'm hit by a bus, my husband gets the memory stick, unless it's mashed up with me. If it's on the cloud, it's somewhat more difficult. Maybe in the UK, maybe in India, maybe in Sweden, US. Difficult to tell. So the storage of assets is also complicated. So if you're trying to get it back after someone dies, another layer of complexity. What about the value of these digital assets? Well, it's just a bunch of old files, isn't it? Nobody wants it. Lovely photos. Emails, the first email that you sent to somebody saying, I love you. Maybe the first email you sent saying, I hate you. Some of these things are important. There is sentimental value in some of the digital assets that we have, our communications. And because we're increasingly expressing ourselves online, through social media, through email, even through text, some of these things have a sentimental value, and they're important. I'm sure that at the book festival, there's authors who have written their magnum opus that's appeared at this festival online. Where do they store it? In the cloud. What happens if they get hit by that bus before the book is published? Who gets it? Anybody? Nobody? Does the internet service provider own it? A lot of the time it's unclear, but there's value in these digital assets. There might be some useful stuff. There might be an email that says, the stopcock is under the sink. The life insurance policy is in the second drawer down. There's informational value in some of these assets as well. You might even store where the bank accounts are. You know, online bank accounts, share certificates, wherever you put them. And of course, there's a load of old junk. photos that are rubbish with thumbs over, emails that are inconsequential. There's a lot of clutter. And because it's so easy to create it with digital media, there's lots of junk and we don't clear it up a lot of the time. What about unexpectedly useful data? I've been doing some work recently with a forensic anthropologist, and his job is to go to disasters, places like Haiti, to look at bodies and identify them in the aftermath of disaster. Images like this that you can find on Facebook can be very useful in identifying a body if you can't see the face anymore. Nice tattoo, you can identify who that person is. Really not what they planned when they put that photo up on Facebook, I'm quite sure, but very useful in the aftermath of a death. So data has some unexpected values as well as the obvious ones. So how do you bequeath digital assets? Can you? You can in Oklahoma. There's been a law passed in Oklahoma which says you can bequeath data from social networking sites, emails, blogs. But this is quite unusual. And there's lots of barriers to bequeathing your personal data. Now, this person here, who is it? No idea. It's a person on Second Life. They've got a pseudonymous identity, so they've not even called themselves by their real name. Could be me. Who knows? I'm not going to say. There's problems with online accounts that we don't have to tie ourselves to our own name. So I'm Wendy Moncur, but I may have an alternative ID online of, Jack Daniels. Very difficult to trace me back to Wendy Moncur. I may be anonymous. I may use my real identity, but how would anyone know? How would my husband know that I have that account? If he finds out I have the account, how does he know my password? I wouldn't trust him. Of course I wouldn't give my husband my password. There's lots of people here that wouldn't. Do you even own the asset? So my understanding is with Second Life that actually they own everything that you create anyway. Flickr and Yahoo, in their terms of service for the UK, they specifically say the account terminates on death. So if I'm tragically hit by that bus and my husband gets in touch with Yahoo and says, can I please have Wendy's photos? Can I please have her emails? They go, no, you signed up. Terminate on death. You've just told us she died. Tough. This happened with a chap called Lance Corporal Ellsworth. He was killed on active service in Iraq. And it was a court case in the States. He told his parents that all of his information that was valuable was on his email account on Yahoo. He was killed. His parents tried to get it. Yahoo said, tough. So it ended up being a court case. And Yahoo did eventually pass the information over to the parents. But the only information they gave was the information he'd sent, not the information he received, because they couldn't violate other people's privacy. Which takes me on to skeletons. Could you put your hands up if you have no secrets online? That you've never written an email that said something bad about somebody? Done something naughty? Nobody's put their hand up. We all say things, my husband's really annoying me today. My kids are silly. Even silly things like this. But when you die, if somebody gets that email, perhaps there's consequences you'd rather not happen. So we keep things online that perhaps we don't want people to see. How do other internet service providers deal with death? Facebook is probably one of the better ones. It gives people the option to memorialise an account. So after my bus incident tomorrow, my husband could get in touch with Facebook, not a person. You can't get in touch with a person at Facebook easily. But you can get in touch with Facebook and ask them to memorialise my Facebook account. In which case I can't accept any new friends because that would be a bit macabre. I won't remind you that it's my birthday quite soon and I'd like presents because I can't have birthdays anymore. I'm under the bus. You could leave my Facebook account running, in which case I will remind you to say happy birthday, which could be sad if you like me. I could take on new friends. Or you could delete my account. To delete the account, you need a death certificate or a birth certificate. So they're pretty good. They have thought it through to a certain extent. Twitter allows family members to remove the account and download tweets. Again, evidence of death is needed. Gmail, well, they might give you access. They'll think about it with evidence, but they don't guarantee it. eBay, I couldn't find anything on the terms of service. I don't know if anybody else has ever looked, but they say you can't transfer your eBay account. So when I've built up my mega business on eBay with a reputation that's worth something, you can't transfer it. So my business is finished on eBay if I die, even though my husband might like to take it over. So the situation is unclear amongst internet service providers, and it's inconsistent. When you speak to people in the street, they generally assume it'll all be fine. They'll be able to get assets if somebody dies, it'll just transfer, and it's just not the case. So what can you do? Stay offline, that's an option. If you're online, the practical thing to do is list what digital assets you have. So the account name, the password, the website, and keep it somewhere. You can use software tools to do this. There are some available. The ones here are just the ones that got the top 4 in a magazine review of password storage tools. You shouldn't do it. A lot of the terms of service with ISPs and banks that do online banking say you must not write down your password, you must not share it. So you're immediately violating terms of service. The other thing you can do is appoint a digital executor. So I don't know how many people in the room have a real-world will. People are quite bad at that as well. But you can appoint an executor for your digital material. You could pick someone you know and trust, family member, friend, lawyer, if you trust your lawyer. You could use a digital estate service, which I'll explain. Or you could use a posthumous email service, which has some slapstick elements to it. So digital estate service is a secure online service which allows you to say what assets you have online, what the passwords are, where they're stored. Some of them also allow you to express last wishes, what kind of music you want played at your funeral, any emails you want sent out after your death, and in some there's also instructions in case of brain death. So if I'm hit by a bus tomorrow and my brain stops working but my body keeps on going, there's instructions for that too. So that's one option. And there's companies like Legacy Locker and Intrustnet have been doing this for a while. There are some disadvantages in that these companies are quite young. So most of them have started up since 2000, the majority since 2010. So whether they actually outlive us, that's a question as well. And indeed, one of these, I can't remember which, has just been bought over already. What about posthumous emails? These are more basic than digital estate services. One of them, Dead Man's Switch, what it does is it will email you regularly, every 6 months. Say, hey, Wendy, you still alive? And I'll go, yeah, I'm still alive. Great. My email stopped working a couple of weeks ago, so I've changed email account. Dead Man's Switch will think I'm dead because I haven't replied saying, yeah, I'm still alive. Or it's gone into junk mail. What happens? Well, all the emails that I wrote to people thinking I'd be dead, you really annoyed me. By the way, I was having an affair, I never told you. Not true. Didn't Harry look lovely in that photo? They're sent. And there's me left not being hit by a bus, red-faced, having sent all these emails that I thought were going to be sent after my death, except they just got sent because I changed my email account. And it's an accident. So there are disadvantages. So some things to think about if you're looking at using a digital estate service is how complicated are your digital assets? Are you good at technology? Is it so basic? You use email once a week. You don't need a digital estate service. If you live a vivid and complex life in terms of your online life and have complicated digital assets, it may be useful. Sorry. Are you in good health? Or do you think you are? Do you tend to step in front of buses? It's a bit of a trade-off. It does cost money, but if you have a lot of assets, it may be useful. What about the future? Well, some of the future is bizarrely here now. You can do strange things like you can put QR codes on your tombstone. Doesn't cost that much. So as people go past with their smartphone, they go, there's that Wendy Moncur, I know that name. Let's check out her history and look me up using the QR code. And some of them you can leave a message as well. She was lovely. Or she was awful. There's some questions there about appropriacy. You know, it could be very unpleasant, the messages people leave. And we're seeing that already on Facebook, where people leave messages on memorialised Facebook pages saying, ha, serves you right. It's been cropping up with teenagers that commit suicide in the US. And there's been a couple of cases where teens committed suicide because of Facebook bullying. And because the bullies are friends on Facebook, they then leave messages afterwards saying, serves you right, we didn't like you anyway. Very distressing. And very difficult to shut these memorialised sites down for some parents if they're not techno-savvy. But longer into the future, I don't know if anyone recognises this person. This is Bina 48. Bina 48 is a robot. Using artificial intelligence techniques, one of the researchers has downloaded her personality into Bina. Not all of her personality, but her attitudes and her views. So you can talk to Bina and have a fairly similar conversation from what you would with the researcher. So while at the moment we might think about downloading Facebook pages, sharing digital assets like photos, there's a longer term question about if we can actually download ourselves and what happens to that after we die and who has the right to choose. But for the short term, we're creating more and more stuff online. A lot of people just assume that their next of kin, their loved ones, can inherit it, or perhaps not if they have some secrets. And at present, there's not many mechanisms to manage it smoothly and gracefully. And certainly the mechanisms that exist ask us to violate the terms of service of internet providers. So there's unintended consequences to our use of the internet. And that's it.